Hello, and thank you for watching the MIDC's tutorial on quarterly reporting. Today, I will cover 5 issues related to reporting: how to report filings and assignments, how to report investigators and experts, how to report on counsel at first appearance, special issues pertaining to courts that utilize house counsel models, and tracking indigent defense using the attorney status variable. Please feel free to watch the tutorial in its entirety or skip around to sections as needed. First, I will discuss how to report filings and assignments. The quarterly report asks 2 questions related to filings and assignments. First, total number of new adult criminal case filings in this reporting period. And second, of this total, the number with assigned counsel post-arraignment. Let's start with the first question: total number of new adult criminal case filings in this reporting period. This question is asking for a count of every new case that was filed during the course of the quarter. So let's say, for example, from October 1st through December 31st. In this count, you should include all cases that fall under the jurisdiction of the MIDC. In other words, all adult criminal cases that carry a potential sentence of incarceration during the specified reporting period. So in this case, for example, it would be October 1st through December 31st. You should include probation or parole violations when they fall into the category of a new filing. If they do not fall into the category of a new filing, do not count them again. Please follow the guidelines from SCAO on counting cases. For circuit courts, SCAO advises the following in counting cases. I've highlighted the most critical part in yellow. Please feel free to pause your video here to take time to read this through. For district courts, SCAO advises the following. Again, I've highlighted the most critical part in yellow, and please feel free to pause to read the details. You can visit the links at the bottom of this slide and the previous slide for the full text on SCAO's guidelines. The second question in this section pertains to the number of total filings that were handled by appointed counsel or assigned counsel. This number should be a subset of the first number, and so cannot be larger than the first number. It only includes appointed representation at stages following arraignment. The phrase assigned here refers to any type of indigent defense counsel: attorneys from public defender offices, roster attorneys, contract attorneys, MIDC attorneys, house counsel, etc. Cases should be counted in this category if appointed counsel handled the case at any point after arraignment, even if retained counsel worked on part of the case as well, and even if the case was never permanently or formally assigned to a specific attorney, as in house counsel systems. On that note, if you are reporting for a system that uses a house counsel model, please view our tutorial on house counsel systems for more detailed information. So for example, if the total number of filings is 850, and of these 850 cases, 675 were handled at any point by appointed counsel, then the answer to the first question would be 850, and the answer to the second question would be 675. More questions and answers related to these 2 questions can be found in the Compliance Reporting Instructions under the Grants tab on the MIDC website. In addition, for those of you whose courts use JIS, the Compliance Reporting Instructions also include tips and tricks for tracking this data in JIS. You can find this on page 16. This brief tutorial covers how to report on investigators and experts. The quarterly report asks 2 questions related to experts and investigators. First, it asks for the total number of appointed cases in which an investigator was used during the reporting period. Second, it asks for the total number of appointed cases in which an expert was used during the reporting period. Here are some parameters and tips. In some instances, it can be difficult to distinguish between investigative assistance and expert assistance. Please use your judgment to place each instance in the most appropriate category. If a case has multiple experts, please count that as a single instance of expert assistance. Same applies to investigators. We are trying to determine the number of cases in which assistance was utilized, not the number of experts or investigators per case. As part of this, please make sure that you do not report the same case more than once just because assistance spanned multiple reporting periods. Here are some examples. If defense counsel hired 2 expert witnesses in Q1 on the same case, you would count that as just a single instance of an expert. If defense counsel hired 2 expert witnesses in Q1 and another in Q2, you would still count that as just a single instance. If defense counsel hired an investigator in Q1 whose work spanned multiple reporting periods, you will still count this as just a single instance. I often get asked when you should report when this is the case, meaning when an expert or investigator spans multiple reporting periods. At this point in time, you should report when it is most convenient for you, depending on your tracking system. Most systems report in the quarter in which the attorney submitted an invoice for the work or when the work was actually paid. More questions and answers related to these 2 questions can be found in the Compliance Reporting Instructions under the Grants tab on the MIDC website. If your courts use JIS, you can find tips and tricks for tracking investigators and experts in JIS starting on page 19 of the instructions. The most important thing to remember is that if your case management system records each count in a case as its own record, please make sure that you only assign the expert or investigator code to a single one of the counts so that it does not double count a single use of an expert or investigator. The next tutorial covers how to report on counsel at first appearance. The most detailed questions in the quarterly report pertain to counsel at first appearance. All of the questions in this section are tied to Standard 4 and are concerned with representation at arraignment, not at other stages. There are 2 types of questions in this section. Questions about arraignments that occurred, you can see those in the blue square, and then questions about arraignments that did not occur, or cases in which an arraignment never occurred, and those are in the orange square. The first prompt is total number of arraignments conducted. This refers to the total number of arraignments on relevant cases that were conducted during the reporting period. This total is the sum of defendants who were represented at arraignment by retained counsel, represented by appointed counsel, invoked their right of self-representation, had no counsel due to counsel's absence, or any additional categories that are relevant in your system. All cases in this broad category should be characterized by arraignments that actually took place. So let's say that the number of total arraignments conducted was 200. Of this 200, 28 arraignments were conducted by retained counsel. 156 were conducted by appointed counsel. Note that this refers to any indigent defense attorney. In 16 arraignments, the defendant invoked the right of self-representation. 0 arraignments took place where counsel was absent, and there were no additional categories of note. These subcategories add up to the total 200. The second set of questions apply to cases in which the arraignment never actually took place. The first category captures the number of pleas by mail or taken at the counter. The second category captures cases in which the defendant waived arraignment entirely. This does not apply to cases in which only the reading of the charges is waived, only when the entire proceeding is waived. The last category refers to cases that were resolved prior to arraignment with the help of the arraignment attorney. This only occurs in a small number of courts and should be reserved for the specific scenario. A few important things to note regarding counsel at first appearance questions. First, all courts should be tracking arraignments, including circuit courts. Regardless of the word or phrase that your court uses to refer to this type of hearing, such as status conference, arraignment on the information, or PV arraignment, etc., this data point refers to the first appearance in your court. Please note, if your court does written waivers for every arraignment as standard practice, then please count the first appearance in your court as your quote arraignment. In most courts, this would be the pretrial. If, however, the arraignment is only waived in some cases, then please report the actual arraignment and the number of waivers in the appropriate categories. Please feel free to reach out to MIDC staff for additional clarification on any unique practices. Second, please track all types of arraignments, including in-custody arraignments, court-scheduled arraignments, and walk-in arraignments. If a defendant does not show up for their arraignment, that would not count in any of these categories. A common question that we receive is the following. If a defendant has multiple case numbers relating to a single event or ticket for arraignment, does it count as a single arraignment, or do I list the number of individual cases? For example, if a ticket has 3 misdemeanors on it, do I report this as 1 arraignment or 3 arraignments? The answers are as following. If a defendant is arraigned simultaneously on multiple distinct cases, then each case would count as a separate arraignment. If a defendant is arraigned on multiple charges as part of a single case, then it would only count as a single arraignment. This section of the tutorial covers issues related to systems that utilize house counsel. There are 2 important things for house counsel systems to note. The first is the data point that captures the number of arraignments represented by appointed counsel. Appointed counsel here does not refer to formal appointments, but rather to any indigent defense counsel, including attorneys from public defender offices, roster attorneys, contract attorneys, MIDC attorneys, and house counsel. If the arraignment was conducted by any type of indigent defense attorney, it should be counted in this category. The second is the data point that captures the number of new filings represented by assigned counsel. Again, assigned counsel here does not refer to formal appointments, but rather to any indigent defense counsel, including attorneys from public defender offices, roster attorneys, contract attorneys, MIDC attorneys, and house counsel. Please count a case in this category, even if the attorney only worked a partial case, meaning that retained counsel handled some of the case as well. Please also only count a case in this category once, even if multiple indigent defense attorneys worked on the case. The goal is to capture how many new filings ever had indigent defense counsel handle the case. So cases should never be marked more than once in this category. This may be a change from how you have been tracking in the past, so please let us know if you have any questions. The last section of the tutorial points to an often overlooked field in court case management systems that is critical to tracking and understanding indigent defense in Michigan. In order to facilitate long-term standardized solutions, we are asking courts to enter the following information into their case management systems for every case. For JIS users, the field is called attorney type. Other systems often use different names, but the gist is similar. This captures the type of attorney that worked on each case. Some systems only have one option here, A or appointed, and other times there are several options, such as appointed, retained, waived, etc. This will allow the MIDC to track the number of cases represented by indigent defense attorneys and tie this information to specific case level information. If your court needs a refresher on how to do this, please contact us. If you have any questions on this tutorial or on other issues related to tracking, please reach out to the MIDC's research unit. We are here and happy to help.